Peace, peace, everyone. Hete pu, Ashukwu Noir. Peaceful, respective greetings to everyone. I am Joy Allen of Karmic Dynasty and very, very excited, very grateful to be here today. Once again, in your presence, it is an honor to be here. I am grateful, so grateful for everything, for all support of myself and my platform. It's been a little while since I've seen you all, and we are here, and that's what's great. My sharer, Abdiel Ben Levy L, is here as well. He says, let's get it in. So we're going to get it in today. I have joining me today in the studio the author of a series of books. It's 3 volumes to this book. The God Genes Decoded. So here in the studio today, he is known as Baba Nu. So we are welcoming Baba Nu to Karmic Dynasty today. And we have planned actually a series of broadcasts coming your way. So we're introducing him today to you all. And he's not a stranger to many. He may be to you, but you will get to know him today. So I appreciate you all being here. I suggest right now, y'all know how we roll around here. Get your pen and paper out. Pen and paper. We making it happen. I'm excited. Y'all can tell I'm excited. I feel it. I'm excited. Oh boy. Also, I have in the studio with me today, of course, Siba Ramotef Kweb. He will be here with me today, assisting with translation for you all who would like that service. We are here today for you. Right now, I'm bringing Baba Nu in. Siba Baba Nu. He's going to speak to you, introduce himself, tell us more about him, and definitely how we can get in contact with him. I have his Facebook information. And as he shares with us more contact info, I'm going to add it in for us all, okay? All right, peace. Hete Pool, Siba Baba Nu, how are you?
Peace and blessings. I am doing well. Thanks for the introduction. I just want to make sure that you can hear me fine because
We hear
these.
you perfectly.
Okay, great, great. Thanks for the introduction. Very glad to be on your show and to be
Gratitude.
able to, introduce myself to your audience and to people again that haven't been on shows in well over a year. I haven't been on a show in well over a year. I did a couple of YouTube videos that people can check out, but I'm just glad to be back and back on that subject that is very, very important to a lot of people around the world, which is ancient Egyptian Camus spirituality, knowledge, wisdom, and what was really so great and interesting about these people. And I've done a very, very good job in presenting that information and really helping to bring uh, fresh perspective, uh, very relatively new perspective so that, more people and people who are already inspired can continue to being inspired by this great nation of people. Hi, are you still there?
Yes, we are here. All right. I appreciate your introduction. And we have also with us, as I mentioned before, Siba Ramotef Kweb. Ramotef, are you available with us right now? Okay. All right. So now, okay, Ramotef, if you can hear me, when you are ready, when you're prepared, come into the studio, introduce yourself to everyone who does not know you, those who are new to Karmic Dynasty, and for those who we do know you, we'd still like to hear from you as well. Now, before each, sometime in the broadcast, I share how I got upon the topic, the subject, and or the guest, etc., etc. Now, Siba Baba Nu was referred to Karmic Dynasty by Siba Kepra Ptah. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. We've had group meetings in preparation for today's broadcast and the series of broadcasts that we have planned to bring you. And I've been excited the entire time. Kind of like how you see me today. I'm a little excited. Now, in the meeting, I was a little bit more structured and squared away, and I had my questions. I had my pen and paper. I was so serious. Okay, I got it. I broke it down. I'm familiar. And now I can show all my excitement that's inside. Okay, we good. Peace, peace, peace.
Okay.
All right. So, yes. So, mention in brief, speaking of the future planned series with Siba Babanu, Sibra Kepper Patel will be joining us as well. They have a few projects that they like to bring together to the Karmic Dynasty platform. So be prepared for a future broadcast to see Siba Babanu and Sibra Kepper Patel in their presentation for you. Okay. Now, Siba Babanu, question.
Yes.
Thank you. Share with us in brief. Well, share however long you want to take. I have all day. We can sit here all day. So take your time. Take your time. But share with us. So share with us how you came into the knowledge that it took to create the book, and then share with us what led you to actually create the book.
Um, I attended
Well,
City
books,
College.
books. There's
Yeah,
3 volumes.
there three.
Right.
So how I got into this knowledge. Um, I attended City College. It was back in 1993, and there was an interesting brother who impressed upon me that we black people need to look at our ancient history. At first, I was a bit reluctant because I did sense a bit of anti-white sentiment, and I was at that time
Mm. Hmm.
trying to avoid it at age 18. But the information that was focused on was so much about Kemet, and it wasn't a lot about white people. There was so
Mm.
much knowledge on Kemet. For instance, there was, I was introduced to a book by Gerald A. Massey on ancient Egypt and on its role. And, there was a lot of knowledge in these books. Gerald Massey puts a lot of information in books. He doesn't put a little bit of information, and he correlates a lot of the information with other, you know, you could say areas or tribe of people in Africa. So I was overwhelmed and inspired mainly, if not, you know, mainly by ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet,
Right.
and
Right.
how great they were,
Mm.
and their spirituality.
Exactly.
So, I did a prayer, and I learned about ancestors and the connection to ancestors, and I did a prayer because I wanted to know about my ancestors, and you know uh, a group of them came to me in a dream. I was still 18 years old.
Mm. Okay.
They were all wearing what I many years later found out was the fez, the Moorish fez. They were all in the fez,
Wow.
but they were from the Congo. And in the dream, we were all sitting in a Khmu temple. There were hieroglyphs all over the walls of the temple, and all my ancestors were sitting down. They all looked, royal, but they
Mm.
were priests. They were priests of that tradition. So, this happened probably about maybe about 3 or so months after I was introduced to the information. you know. Um, I continued to study, at City College. I went to some, I guess you could say, Black Studies meetings, Black Studies functions. I did sit in a Black Studies class with Dr. Jeffries, and I did take a Black Studies class. The man, he was Haitian, and he was speaking about Haitian voodoo, and he was speaking about how people married spirits, but he really didn't explain it or go into depth. I can remember taking, you know, they would have time when they would have like um lectures. It wasn't classes, but it would be on certain days they would have lectures on certain topics. And I took one that was speak that the speaker's name, his name was Professor Kiteme, and he was a Babalao, and he spoke a lot about Ifa, how Ifa saved his life, how they did readings for him every single day, and that's how he conducted himself in the area of Nigeria he was from. He said, you know, readings would even determine whether he would leave the house or not, and that's how he, kept his life safe. So it was like, wow, this is a very, very interesting and in-depth tradition. You know, in my teenage years, there was introduction to, spirituality. There was attempts at things like astral travel. Uh, but then I got introduced to ancient Kemet, and then, to other African traditional systems and stuff like that. It was much more intense at that period of my life. About a year later, I was walking down, this is in Brooklyn, Flatbush Avenue, and I ran into Nkiri bookstore, and I saw two books, The Medunator Volume 1 and 2 by Raoul Nefferman, and I purchased those books. I'd also purchased books by R.S. Waller de Lubix from a from a very popular spiritual and occult bookstore up in Manhattan. So I was reading, you know. I eventually, in 1996, this was 3 years later. So for these first uh, 3 years from 1993, I was reading through books. Sometimes I would read a book in like 5 or 6 days. And then I would read and reread books because I was trying to get a better understanding. And there were, issues in getting a better understanding. And much later, years later, I learned why, there were a lot of books where, it was more hype than understanding. However, Gerald Massey and Budge, their books were so much information that even though you might not understand the religion and spirituality of the ancient Egyptians, you were still learning a lot of great information, about a lot of different deities, their names, their, rules to the Camus, what the Camus thought of them. And so this was all that I was reading. By 1996, I joined the Sarasate Society. I stayed there for 10 years. I learned Qigong. I learned meditation techniques. Prior to that, I was given a very good book on yoga. It was about 1994, and it had great information on breathing techniques. When I got to a Sarasate Society, their breathing techniques, it was not the same, but I tried it anywhere. I learned a lot about diet. I had become a vegan, back around 1994. That's when I stopped eating, meat and stuff like that, because that was also part of of the movement. There were a lot of people that were pushing that. So, I felt like I was in a movement and being a part of a movement, and joining a set society. I still felt that way. Um, learned a lot about astrology. They had a lot of rituals every full moon, close to the full moon. There were rituals. There were classes, and then they had a priesthood class, and I got involved in that, you know, heavily after two years of taking classes. When I got there, you had to take classes for 2 years before you can join the priesthood class, the priesthood prep class, and then that became the Netrahanu level one class. Um, but then after 10 years of being a member of the group, I saw some things with Haitian voodoo, just let's put it that way. And I realized, it just really, really dawned on me that I was not properly trained as a priest. And, I also got
Wow.
dissatisfied. I got dissatisfied with the amount of black supremacy
Mm,
and a lot of the perception of white inferiority, probably because I worked in corporate America, law firms and stuff like that for, a long period of time, for about 8 years or so whilst I was in the group. And I would say I was disappointed with white people and their level of intelligence. Coming from Barbados, I expected a higher level of intelligence in what I saw. But at the same time, I was still disappointed with a whole lot of the racial um, push and the way it was being pushed in the group that I was in, especially because there weren't major successes. And one of the major things that I was looking for in success was contact. You know, uh, I wasn't getting as much contact as I needed. And I knew that because I was so disciplined with doing a lot of the spiritual exercises so that I could get contact. And then coming on towards the end, I would say probably about a year or so before I left, we learned the five organ breathing techniques. And that helped to revolutionize my ability to control my behavior and my emotions, which was one of the central tenets of the group. So I was like, wow, we didn't even have the major tool. To me, it became a major tool for trying to achieve, a lot of the type of behavior that was being pushed and expected. A lot of it was attempted they attempted behavior modification via meditation and visualization when you needed to balance your organ system because they control certain emotions and certain emotional expressions. And then I started getting into working with the Shemhanfarash and those angels, and I got so much contact, and my ancestors also intervened, and it was very, very clear from them that it was time to go. So I probably a few months before I left, writing a book and having the idea to write a book had come to me, and I started jotting down some, notes. But I had so much interest in being able to work with these angels and also having them work with me, and then also having ancestors get involved. And I saw why that was happening, and I saw that I had to leave. That was the year 2006. Is that's a year that I I officially parted ways. In the beginning of 2007, I got initiated into Haitian voodoo, but I'd already started on the God Genes Decoded, and I had did a prayer to one of those angels that I was working with, and a meditation, and I'd asked them, for help because I knew that after 10 years of being a member of a Sarasat society with all of the classes, I knew I still didn't understand the ancient Egyptian system. I saw that their pantheon was very, very limited. There, there are a lot of other deities in the ancient Egyptian system. And then I started to go back to Budge and Gerald Massey and just saw that, we, it's like Kemet is a bread basket, but we just have like one loaf of bread. And, you need, 10 or 15 loaves to have a good meal with a good amount of people. So my thirst and hunger for the knowledge, it was reinvigorated. And then I had spiritual contact. One of the angels that I contacted me clearly showed me that I had to look specifically at chemistry and science in order to get an understanding. So, I started to write the book by looking at ancient Egyptian cosmological doctrines because I knew from my early studies back in 1993 and 1994 that a lot of, if not all, ancient systems and indigenous African traditional systems, cosmology was very important. Cosmogony was very important. Initiation and divination was very, very important. So he said, let me look at the cosmology. Um, you know, those those are major doctrinal scriptures of the ancient Egyptians that is available to the public. And then being told by this particular angel, I have his name. I'm not going to say it yet because it was two that helped me write the book. It was one that showed me look at science and chemistry. And I started to look at science and chemistry. And then one of my ancestors, whilst I was writing the book, he intervened for about 6 or 7 days, and he kept showing me the hydrogen fusion cycle and atoms doubling and the doubling of electrons in the valence shell. And he kept saying that hydrogen is the base. And I realized that the deity Amun corresponds to hydrogen, and that life, started in its primordial status as single units of matter. And I was successfully able to identify that in the English language as hydrogen. It wasn't until many years later I found the Greek origin of the word hydrogen and how it connects to the deity Heteru. And Heteru was also known to be married to the deity Amun, and the realization of coupling as a marriage, and that bonds of hydrogen are coupling and partnering, and that's how you get bigger molecules. So I saw that the ancient Egyptian cosmology at Anu, specifically at Anu, which they say is the oldest cosmological doctrine, and it's their oldest cosmological doctrine. It's also that it goes back to the very earliest of times. So I started to see, one high noon, which is part of that group of eight is water. Um, you know, that's just pretty much known at Nu, and noon is water, and just having the contact and inspiration from from two different angels, one ancestor. I saw that Hek and Heket corresponded to oxygen, and that Amun and Amanet corresponded to hydrogen. And I saw hydrogen and oxygen coming together to make water. And I started to see the process of what these deities represent. And so, in writing the book, I was able to get clearer. Um, I was able to clear to explain it clearer by looking at what the Camus said about those Neteru, and then looking at what science says about certain, atoms and molecules. And I was just lucky. There was one day, I was still writing the book, and I was getting naturalized to be an American citizen. And there was this Indian girl, meaning from India. She might have been born here, but both her parents were from India. And she was reading an article on the hydrogen fusion cycle, and I copied the URL from what she was reading, and I went home and I looked it up, and researched the hydrogen fusion cycle. Plus, I was meditating and doing chants and understanding flow. These are the things that help help me to clarify and pick apart the ancient Egyptian creation stories to contemporary scientific uh modern explanations of the creation of our universe and how it formed. So once I got to the Paut Neteru, which is also part is in the book of knowing the the evolutions of Ra and overthrown of Pep. And Egyptologists, they would say two things: the book of knowing the evolutions of Ra, or they would say the book of knowing the transformations of Ra. And somehow the word evolution stuck in my mind, as this is an evolutionary process that they are explaining. So when it gets to that cosmological account where they are speaking of a tomb, emitted Shu, and Tefnut, so they're talking about Ra a, pr- coming from the primordial waters of Nu, and knowing that the primordial waters of Nu consisted of the eight Octawad. And then in the story now, it continues with, emitting Shu and Tefnut, but it's still the same book of knowing the evolutions of Ra and of overthrowing Opet. But they're now mentioning different deities. And I also saw how a tomb would be called a tomb Ra, as this is a continuation of the experience of a specific Neteru that climbed its way up the evolutionary ladder, uh, binding with other atoms, and being able to build up to being bigger molecules, and realizing that we all start out on that level. And there was a brother that I had spoken to who does ayahuasca journeys, and who also does journeys with shrooms. And he had explained to me that he had asked the deities and asked the ancestors to show him how he was in his original state. And his explanation, in my imagination, I could see that it was a single unit of matter. I could see that, it was hydrogen what he was explaining, and I saw the letter min. Min is Amun is also called min, and min is depicted as ithaphallic, and that was very similar to what he saw. So I had a combination of uh, chanting a lot, getting higher vibrations, uh, particular particular deities, dropping hints, and particular ancestors dropping hints. And the person that had introduced me to ancient Kemet and the movement, there was something that they told me just before they had given me a college science book, and I forgot every single thing that they said. They kind of pulled it back, but it just confirmed that chemet and chemistry are related for a reason, and that you have to look at chemistry and science if you want to be able to have an understanding of, you know, some of the really advanced texts of the ancient Egyptians, and that their cosmological stories of creation, the one, the cosmology at Anu, the cosmology at Kemenu, and the cosmology at Menefer. In the cosmology at Menefer, where Ptah is the creator, it starts with um, Ptah Ptah Heket, and then it goes on to Ptah with two of those other Octoroid deities. This is really how it is, you know, at the top. So you see this relationship with these primordial deities, and we just have to, because it's a text that was inscribed on stone, and some of it was actually scratched out. So just coming to the understanding that the Netaru as well, once they were able to build themselves up into more formidable, advanced beings, because everything is physical, is just that on a very small level we start, that they started to manipulate this matter, to manipulate this primordial matter, you know, and form it into more advanced and more beautiful structures. So, you know, being able to look at the fact that everything is alive, but that things come together, and now we have like a group consciousness. Like we call ourselves individuals, but we are a group consciousness of a whole lot of other miniature beings of atoms. Um, the book that I use, it went into molecular cell biology, and I started to see the correlations between, concepts that relate to specific neteru in the body, and how it was designed, and the whole microcosm and macrocosm spiel that you hear in spiritual or occult literature started to make sense. Like in Kabbalah books, how man is the microcosm of the macrocosm, and being able to arrange the Pa'ut Neteru according to the tree of life, and correlate that to different stages of creation in science, you know, whereby the universe is forming, looking at the deity Nut, and knowing that Nut is the border of the universe. Nut built, innovated, and created the borders of our universe. And it, the picture should be in the first book, but there is a picture of the deity Shu holding up the boat of Ra, and on top of that is the deity Nut bended over backwards, but in like a perfect circle. That part of her legs that are bent, and that represents the universe on a macrocosmic level as a sphere. So we
Now
know
that
that
image is in which volume of the book, The God
that
James Decoded?
that should be in volume one.
Volume one. Okay.
Yeah, that one should be in volume one. So it was a very, very enlightening journey, and I was able to better appreciate the Khmu culture and see its correlation and relationship to African traditional culture, especially when I got to the tree of life within man and speaking about your Ba and knowing that your Ba or your angel guide is your Ori in the Yoruba tradition and seeing, how important that is to take care of, and also reading over scriptures in ancient Kemet of how important that part of your spirit is. It wasn't just a, it didn't, I didn't write just a bland, like scientific textbook. Is more of an engaging spiritual journey and an inspiration for, being on the spiritual path, but in a serious, practical way.
Okay. Gratitude. Now, in the practical way, the serious practical way, share with us the what is in each volume. Why 3 volumes to the God James Decoded? And will there be more volumes?
Why there, yeah, why there are 3 volumes? Uh,
Yes, talk, speak to us about each one individually.
um, volume one is the biggest volume. Um, you know, I made the text just a point smaller because it was a lot of information. But, volume one starts with the cosmology, and it relates the primordial deities to the 8 Gua of the I Ching, and it compares what is said of those Gua with the qualities that the Khmu knew of those primordial deities. So I had to let people see why doing I Ching readings is a very, very good reason, why, without even saying it, but just showing those correlations, why it's such an important tool uh, to the Chinese, and then that it was an important tool in ancient Kemet, meaning that they for sure used the I Ching oracle as a people, and once again looking at those as those deities who might have started off on that level, but they're not on that level anymore. And what they represent now is the wisdom of that journey. Deities like Amun and Amanet, so that when you do an I Ching reading, uh, with the trigrams represented built into hexagrams, you know, if you look at Ifa and its use, particular readings give you particular deities to make your offerings to address situations, and be in an indirect way letting people know that when you do I Ching readings, you can have about 8 different deities that you can propitiate to resolve your problem, or 8 different deities that you can work with. So even though these are trigrams, they also are Neteru correspondence. So, then in moving on to
Because I know you also provide readings, correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Uh,
And we now what I would like for you to speak about is some of your readings, not some of your. I would like to for you to speak of your services of readings and some of your products as well, because we're introducing you today. So I like for people to know more about you, as well as the the volumes that you have for the God Genes Decoded, and speak about that part of you as well, because you are more than this book, right? And I like
yeah,
everybody to know that he's a great man. He's a great man. I need y'all to know more about him. Now, speaking of great men, I'd like for Ramutef Queb, this Seba has joined us, for him to introduce himself to everyone and reintroduce himself to those of us who know him.
peace, brother.
Who are Seba?
Peace, peace, peace. Anouk Ramotef Queb. I'm Ramotef Queb. I'm a student of Tesha Parah, Holy House of Ra. I'm also a keeper of Tep Time. I'm a practitioner of a practitioner learning of different divination practices. You can find me on Facebook as Ramotef Queb. You can find me on Instagram as Ramotef_Queb. And I'm sitting there listening to the brother, and definitely you got a lot of great information. Definitely a lot of great information. I much gratitude to you. Definitely.
Yes, gratitude to you. Definitely. Now, for those of you who don't know, um, Ramutef Queb, he co-hosts the Karmic Dynasty Studio. He's a support system. He is security. He's admin. He's D, all of the above. All right. So Ramutef Queb, if you don't know, get used to seeing him around here, popping in and out, because this is his home. This is his home. All right. So Baba Nu, we have a
Yeah,
question for you from the audience. And I'm
okay.
muting Ramutev's mic because he's in the studio with me, and we're getting echoes. So he's here, but I'm muting him. So from the audience, Faye Triplet of Facebook, peace, Faye, peace, says, just curious on your take on the structure of Earth regarding the Van Allen belt, Earth nor being flat nor round, but separated by cosmic spheres.
Well, you know, I've seen map structures of it of inner Earth, and the hard part isn't round, but when you add the oceans and with the ozone layer sphere, you know, that is what is round. You know, the Earth was, meaning its hard part and core first. Its core is a sun. It has a sun at the center, and that's spherical. But then the hard part around it that forms up the continents and all that stuff, it really does look like something crashed into it. Something crashed into this planet. I know that story from the Sumerians and Marduk and stuff like that, and Nibiru and stuff like that. So it was spherical, uh, overlaid hard with a sun in the center, which is spherical. The ozone layer, that is spherical or oblong. You could say oblong, but I use spherical because I mean it's more like an egg shape. Now the Van Allen belt is the reason why modern technological advancements in space travel and going to the moon is a lie. The Van Allen belt is connected to the ozone layer for protection of the Earth from the dangerous photons coming out of the sun. You know, it slows it down. The ozone layer, slows it down. When they get up to the Van Allen belt point, you know, those whatever's on that ship can only be, like electronic and stuff like that, I've seen videos that are not too long ago on YouTube where NASA scientists, I guess that they slipped up and said we haven't made the technology to leave the earth. And I got an understanding of that. I remember many, many years ago. This is just when I had started to believe in space travel because one, an individual had watched a very good scientific program that broke down the math and they really forced that on me. And then an angel came to me and showed me you know, an intergalactic space station. And the angel did that to me because I didn't believe in extraterrestrial, you know, in the way that it is really presented. But mainly, I didn't believe in space travel and stuff like that. And not too long after that, I saw a very big bubble black spaceship in my visions, and the outside of it, I knew it was carbon, and the outside of it was thick. It even seemed as though some of the photons coming off the sun or different suns that it gets close to had kind of piled up enough to help with the carbon outside, or that the carbon outside was so thick so that it could withstand this is what they call UV radiation, the dangerous rays of the sun. Living in Barbados, which is close to the tropical belt, when there are no clouds, you can feel the sun beating on you, especially in the back of your neck. You can tell that you're being stung by tiny particles. Like, I have felt that enough to, realize how powerful the sun is. Then looking at ancient Egyptian uh, deities like Amun, Mut, and Khonsu, and knowing what Mut represents, and Amun in that triad, because this is not Amun and Amunet. This is Amun and Mut, and they are talking about their roles in creating the ozone layer, Mut as protector. So the ozone layer is that protection. Even how Mut or a vulture would, feed its young from its own um, flesh is that we are, you know, eating and absorbing the atmosphere as well. It is what we, breathe in, and it's part of our food supply, the different, oxygen and the different gases that are in the air. But, in terms of, I don't know if the person wanted to know about the flat earth thing or what not, but just knowing the structure then with the oceans, that's what makes it spherical. The earth is is so huge. There are parts that are flat, but it is curved,
She said
you
not
know?
exactly. She didn't need to know that exactly
Right.
about the flat earth part. Yeah, she was
Yeah,
Yeah,
interested in that.
yeah, yeah, but I sometimes I just count myself as lucky for seeing certain things that scientists would put out that is accurate and this planet got crashed into. And they have enough of, I guess, a satellite spectrographic scanning that they did of the planet, maybe some type of sonar scanning that they did of the planet, and you can see huge, I mean, parts that are gouged out where, it must have got hidden by a meteor that was probably, maybe half the size of a continent or something. So, it gets into what might seem like more esoteric knowledge, but there was a war. I saw the deity Tiamat. I contacted that deity through meditation, invocation of the name, and I saw her. She is still very, 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 very upset. There were things going on, and uh, this this earth was at the receding end of major destruction. So it's not a perfect sphere anymore, but it was, and that's the standard for building great planets and building suns. The standard and the sense is a sphere.
Okay. Yeah, she says she's more interested in your book. She just wanted to know your take on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
So
Ramotep, do you
Yeah.
have some feedback on this?
Yeah, when it comes to dealing with that, my personal view is from understanding the what they call the cosmic egg. When the brother said that, that's when it comes to a lot of the forms, and if you were to put all that science within it and understand that if you when they found that cosmic egg, you should understand that most of everything that's out there in space is almost in the shape of an egg because it's mirroring images from the what you call it, like light and radiation with the sun. The sun itself is the same type of ordeal. From our point of view, it is in a spherical diagram. But when you come out there and we're able to see all those formations, you're going to see that most of everything is shaped like that. Like like most of everything is shaped like that. Because if
yeah,
you look at it from a certain view, you can see that it's spherical. And as you start to move it around, things of that nature, you understand that certain things like the Earth itself is in a sense of a shape like this.
yeah,
And understanding that it's doing this rotation at the same time as tilt at the same time. And once you start to get that clear understanding of how our universe is actually built, you look at the how you say what is called our spherical our galaxy in a sense. Our galaxy is basically in the same type of shape, in the same type of format, in the same type of sphere. Everything has its place in its and like almost like in a DNA strand when it comes dealing with the cosmos. I put my egg back under my pillow.
Now, speaking of DNA strands, let me help. Hold on, Ramotep. Okay. For the record, sneak peek, I'm giving y'all some inside scoop right now. The matriarch, the mother matriarch herself, Salima Ellis, she got this presentation on the DNA strain, and I can't wait to present it here on Karmic Dynasty for y'all. So I need y'all to hold tight on that one too. Now, see what Baba knew when you were answering the question, the Faye Triplets question here. I like how you put it real brief, right quick for me. Um, there was a section and you said it like a mouthful. What some people would take like an hour to explain, and a bunch of images, you said it in like 2 seconds. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. And I enjoyed the explanation. This is what I got from it that I'm talking about. I like the part where you said the hard parts are not round. It's when you add the water. And then you also, because yeah, the people talk about the earth like the earth is all um the earth is all
the hard part.
land, like it's all hard part, and we on
Yeah,
this, like they call it the earth, the rock, a rock, like
yeah,
everything, like it's just this big hard rock, and this circle is round or flat, whichever. Either way, as he said, the hard parts are not round, which means then we also, I'm not even gonna go into flat earth theory. Um but the when you add the water, then that's when the difference is made.
Yeah.
And so we also know, we also have knowledge of the continents, the lands have been separated over time. And we also know that the separation will continue. And then that creates a different shape because the hard parts are moving. So I have spoken to people about how I think of the earth as like this Rubik's Cube. It shifts. You know how you got the Rubik's Cube and you turn it around and get the colors all matching on one side? It's
Yeah.
shifting. So as the hard parts separate and the other things happen to the hard parts, that's a shift. There's the change. And then when you spoke of the core as the sun, I've told people many times the sun is inside. The sun is at the center. Science and all of them will tell us that the earth's core is super hot. That's the explanation they give you. And if you think they're telling you what it is, but they give you a dry, brief, general explanation and say something like the earth's core is hot, just super hot. Only thing I know in my knowledge of things that are super hot like that are stars, the sun. So they tell us stuff without telling us stuff. And if you pay attention and you use some thought of your own and some guidance from and not from them, then you'll know they are exactly telling us what we need to know. Because they have to tell us. They're not going to directly tell us, but they have to tell us. So Siba Baba knew, and I like how you spoke of the oxygen and gases, the things we breathe in are our food supply. I like how you put that. I did. And I know you mentioned earlier in preparation for the book, you learned about diets and you talked about your transition as a vegan. Could you tell us more about what you learned about what to eat and why to eat those things and how they would benefit us?
Right. You
And if you
know,
want to speak more about oxygen and gases as our food supply, I'd enjoy that as well. Gratitude.
yeah. First, I want to let people know that I am 46 years old. I'm no longer a vegan or vegetarian because of the dietary requirements that do need. I became a vegetarian at age 19. It was uh, a friend of mine. It was a recent friendship, and the person really, really impressed upon me that we didn't need to eat meat, and I started that. And in the beginning, it was good. I really focused on my health. I really ate a wider variety of foods and new foods. So I just want people to understand that sometimes when you start a new diet, it's great because you are eating more and you are eating better food. And the diet that you were on before was very limiting. So the diet that I was on before, it was very limiting, even though it includes meat. It wasn't a whole lot of different types of food. It's not just about meat. So I started to eat a lot more yams and cassava and edibles. I started to eat a lot more beans and different types of beans. I also started to eat, tofu, and I really started cooking, and I really started, meal preparation for myself, and that, really helped. I hadn't started, protein shake yet. I was very, very young. I was like, 19. I was very slim. I was like 125 pounds. I was still just about the same height, 5'8". I was like 125 pounds. So at that weight, It was satisfactory, um, widening my diet, being on the diet that was meat included. I really wasn't eating meat much. When I joined a Star Set Society, they spoke of the protein shake and how important that was, and I added the protein shake, and that also made a great difference. So, felt good. One of the good things that I learned though was a lot about nutrition, period. I learned a lot about carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, glycemic index of food, not eating um, white rice because it's so it's not a whole grain, not eating white bread because it's not a whole grain. I even started to bake bread around age 20. I started to bake bread. I started to go buy whole wheat flour and bake bread. It wasn't an easy process, but the bread that came out, I noticed it was much thicker. Um, it still, but the bread that I made, it was thicker. It still had a softness, and it was more nourishing. So, period, I was getting more nourishing foods. I had come off of, eating lots of rice. Like, prior to that, it would be like mainly rice and some chicken. It wasn't, like you have some yams, you have some cassavas, then you have some, beans, and like three different types of beans. Then you have salad, and now I had a protein shake. So my diet in it improved, like period. And I stayed on that for a long period of time. But I have to be honest with people with the issues that I face that I don't face now. In the winter months, I would always get really terrible cold when I was a vegan, always. Uh, Sometimes I wouldn't even be able to go to work because I was really, really too sick, and it was just a cold. There was 3 years that I did have insomnia, terrible insomnia, but that was not specifically because I was on a vegan diet. That was because we were told not to eat late. Like don't eat after 6. Don't eat after 8. And I just wasn't told that for my body type and my metabolism, it's okay. It was like this is the rule for everybody. You know, if if still being a vegan, I was getting big meals in the evening, I probably would not have been catching uh, those terrible colds that consistent in the winter months. So it was mixed bag. But then when I finally did leave leave the group, um, one of the deities spoke to me and let me know that I need to include meat in my diet. So I just followed, but slowly. I started back with fish, and then I started back with chicken. But for years, I would just, it was like 95% fish. I wouldn't eat chicken much and stuff like that. But, and I still felt better though because I was still eating a wider variety of food, better carbohydrates. I still would go and buy, yams and stuff like that. And I would eat that with the meat that I would eat, which was almost only fish. So I started to eat, um, like red snapper and, kingfish, fishes that you get at at the market. And
Red snapper is my favorite.
yeah, I felt better, but I also noticed I wouldn't get as much cold. Like it went down significantly. I could remember many years ago when I was working a difficult job and I had a cold. This was in like 2010, so this is like 11 years later. Um, but there there was after 2010, like around 2012. Yes, it was in 2012. There was some type of illness going around, and I had caught that illness. A lot of people going to the hospital in the fall. This was like after Superstorm Sandy, and doctors were telling them they don't know what it is, etc. Sometimes it was being called the flu. And up to then, I still wasn't eating, like I would hardly ever eat chicken, anything. And one of my ancestors came to me and said, "You're not sick, you just need to eat chicken." And I couldn't believe it because, even though I was told to eat meat, I was still very much programmed and I would just eat fish. And one day, this was probably about 2 or so months after the ancestor told me that, I ate some chicken and I felt like 100% better. I didn't feel weak anymore. And all symptoms of that illness just disappeared. And I was like, man, I just had to eat some chicken. And I was like, maybe that's why Jews are saying chicken soup is good. Maybe it was what was in the chicken and not the chicken. But immediately after that, I started to eat beef consistently, maybe twice a week. It wasn't a lot of beef, but I would still eat that like twice a week. And then I would eat chicken, and I wouldn't eat as much fish, but I would still eat fish. And is this must go since 2013. I've been feeling great. My health has changed because of eating the meat and stuff. And there's a formula that I was given, and I found out that even while being a vegan, for me, and maybe even for other people, one of the difficulties that I had digestive issues. So getting on the vegan diet, that helped because of wider variety of food, which meant I was also getting certain bacteria and stuff to help with digestion, but I still wasn't getting the full shebang. There had been a digestive issue that I was having, and one, it was a friend that introduced me to, it was Baobab, and I found out that it replaces some of the bacteria. But then one of the deities told me what to combine it for, and they was like, "Don't tell anyone. It's a secret." And my life changed. My skin changed. I was able to gain about 15 more pounds. It was mainly muscle, but when I was vegan, I was stuck at like 145, 150 pounds. And once I got, up to like 147, 148, I would break down. It might be 3 or so months and I'm okay, but then I would break down. So this was in like 2000 and one, and 2002 and 2003. Like those years, I was getting up to 145, 150 pounds. I could never break that barrier. I was, lifting weights. I looked nice, but I could never break that. And now it's easy for me to be 160 to 170 pounds and not have any type of health issues and still have the muscle tone. So I can work out hard, be like 170 pounds, with the diet that I am on, and, not getting colds and flus. I can recall asking my mom once. This is years ago, in the late '90s, like 1999, 2000. When was the last time that you had a cold? She was like, maybe 3 years. I was like, it's probably because it's just sticking in your body and you're not detoxing. This is what I thought in my head. And I just want to give people, the knowledge that I've gained is that keeping the bacteria and even so-called viruses that those animals have, it makes your immune stronger. It gets your immune system introduced to um, those bacteria and those viruses, so it can create what are called antigens. So we had a skewed idea of health in terms of purity of diet. Organic for me is way more about fertilization of the soil, higher nutritional content, and yes, not having certain chemicals spread on your food. But I found that in working out, chelating the body with lactic acid, that helps to remove a lot of those uh, toxins that come from chemicals, you know, meaning that I even want to say that the deities who created and engineered these advanced biological bodies, they knew that there would be certain experiences, with certain things coming into our bodies, and they knew that there would be ways of being able to mitigate against, that. So, it's very important to, still have, like, I would say I am on a superfood diet. I eat plenty of superfoods on a weekly basis. But then I get my, meat, fish, egg, and, that does it great for me. And I also learned that, for people with my blood type and metabolism, veganism is much more difficult. I would always observe other people on the diet and how much energy they could put out for long periods of time. And I was like, wow, I can't do that. But getting my digestion fixed and then getting on the types of food that my energy output needs, but then including foods to make sure that you purify, detox and other things like that. That's the key that worked for me. So, to the vegans out there, I found that, if you eat a certain way, yes, it can be, great. I was eating. This is when I was just mainly fish and not a whole lot of fish because I was still scared of meat. It was really stuck in my head. And this is like I said, upwards of 2012. You know, I would say that if your digestion is good and you are on uh you have some of the superfoods and things like you know eating lots of raw nuts. Know that vegans won't eat eggs, so they might say, but the ones that do might be called like lacto ovo vegetarian. You know, but without that, if you can eat a lot of nuts, and there are certain grains that you can blend down and make raw, then you can be pretty he- you can be pretty healthy, But for me personally, eggs do a lot. Uh, eggs, fish, beef, and chicken. I've been advised why I need to eat the red meat, and I'm seeing the result. Like I said again, I am 46, and I look pretty healthy, and I feel pretty great. And I can do things that I could do like athletically when I was a teenager. So I still have the same athleticism, but I'm not getting sick. I'm not getting, colds and stuff like that barely bother me.
That's great. That's good.
Hmm.
Um,
That's like my whole take
I'm
on
gonna
that.
ask you your feedback, Ramatel. Go ahead with that. Go ahead.
So like, yeah, I agree because a lot of people don't understand the process of what you have to do in order to get your body. Uh, how you say? If you start to think like, oh, I'm gonna go vegan or I'm gonna be a vegetarian real quick, the first thing we do is do the whole um, wing myself off it, or I'm just gonna cold turkey it. No, you have to flush the body out first because you don't know what part of your body is affected. So, like most people, in a sense, like if they got thyroid issues and things of that nature, they don't understand what food can fuck them up. Excuse my language. When it comes to their digestion, things of that nature, if you're a person who's, in a sense, ruled by the stomach, you got to understand there's certain things that you need to replace. And then when it comes to those intestines, colon, pancreas, kidneys, and everything else, you have to understand those functions before you want to take that step of how you say get in your body, because the first thing that people always do is they shock their body into malnutrition. Then once they start to figure certain things out, they're going to notice that, especially dealing with like ancient cultures, a lot of ancient cultures. So one way I always tell people to do is that if you're doing offerings to ancestors and things of that nature, it's the same concept when you're doing it to yourself. It's not on an everyday basis when you do that, right? It shouldn't be on an everyday basis. It should be on a basis like when it comes to dealing like, all right, if I need this or I need that or I need this, or I wonder what negativity or who put some type of spell or who's attacking me spiritually, things of that nature. Most people will go to certain deities or certain ancestors or their altars, and they would do offerings of this, and this of what they used to like or something that they do like. Like if you're doing with certain so far that I know of certain orishas, things of that nature, or rumales, you understand that each one has a particular bird or some kind of it's either some kind of bird or some kind of red meat, not necessarily too much in the pork area, but most are in that area. When it comes to dealing with certain natures, depending on what information a person has gotten about those natures, like Asar, for example, Asar is a lot of the things dealing with him is an ox, just like I want to say Shango too. A lot of things dealing with him is an ox. So it's like certain things of your person's body is definitely they got to really study before they jump in. And my personal view is before you go in any type of route, whether you want to go vegan, um, vegetarian, just only meat person, things of that nature, you got to understand that the body has to be flushed from head to toe. There's a lot of different herbs, bitter herbs, things of that nature that will literally do the job for you. Because we go back to the cosmology of the beings on this planet, dealing with plants, insects, reptiles, water creatures, birds that fly, and animal. Understanding that each one of those components is something that we're all made of. From that, from the understanding of like the plant part, and that's where the whole sun, the oxygen, things of that nature, how we're feeding our body that way. We can feed our body that way. When it comes to dealing with the ants and things of that nature, that's just more of a structure part. But at the same time, if you're able to understand what they really eat, and it's not necessarily on the level of junk food, um, in a sense, you understand how to feed yourself that way too. When it comes to dealing with the reptiles, fish, reptiles, a lot of different reptiles eat eggs. A lot of different um, yeah, a lot of reptiles eat eggs, to be honest. And then when it comes to dealing with birds, birds do the same thing. Some of them are scavengers, some of them are not. But as you go down the long list, you understand like how to really feed yourself according to how do you say the micro to the macro, dealing with those type of ancestors until you get to the beings of ourselves and our ancestors from a cosmic level to the terrestrial level.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. This is one of the things that I found out about veganism and vegetarianism and why it is prescribed is just that it became an idea for some people that, oh, we all should not eat meat, all human beings should only eat vegetables, and it got pulled into the whole animal rights thing and animal cruelty thing. And a lot of people just forgot that there's all types of people living on this planet, living varying lifestyles that include those things, but it's not about animal cruelty. It's not about savagery, and their behaviors to, represent certain things. But what I found is that, in terms of getting people's behavior in control, one of the key things is to take them off meat. And, that is a lot of that seems to apply because we live in a very savage, uncultured society. So, you're going to have people that are eating these power foods, which is what they are. Beef is a power food. I work out, and when I eat beef and work out, I feel like a different person. Energy wise, I can feel the, iron content in the meat, flowing through my body because I can feel circulation in my body. I can feel it well. So even if I take like a liquid iron supplement, I can feel what it does in my body. So I know that people who are eating the beef, which has a high blood content, even when you cook it, you are not draining the blood out. It's still in there, that they are getting a lot more iron, and I've seen the effects of getting enough iron and not being fatigued, you know. I would say that, for myself in the past, week, I came out of a very, very difficult situation. I
Hold on
had
right
to
quick.
do sure thing.
If I may, peace, peace. Ramatef, share that. I seen that. Yes. Most fanatic vegans act like that plant don't want its life too. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's another, big thing that, got caught up in there is that people forget that, plants are alive. I had it was a croton, you know, and I bought a croton plant because I found out that crotons protect you spiritually. So I went and bought one, and I'm not good with plants. I'm not like, I don't have a green thumb. So, but I am spiritual. And when that croton started dying, it came to me in my visions, and it was letting me know, that, it was dying. And then I had bought another plant. It was a palm plant, and I had bought this palm plant because it was the same type of palm plant that we had in the front yard when I was growing up in Barbados. So I was like, you know what? Let me get something that is connected to my history and childhood. And that was not a green thumb. And the palm plant started dying. So I just said, you know what? I'll stop watering it because it is dying. And that palm plant came to me in a vision, and it was like it's suffering. It was like, just because I'm dying doesn't mean you should starve me to death and let me die starving to death type of impression that it gave on me, because it didn't communicate with words, but what it was trying to say to me was so clearly. And I realized that, oh, these plants, they are alive. These trees, they are alive, and they have feelings too. So you might think that, killing an animal is savage when we are killing trees and, the fruits and stuff like that, and those things are alive. So it's about how you treat that life. Um, I can't always do it. So I have to make my atonement or prayer in a different way, meaning I can't always sacrifice the animals that I kill. I can't always be there when they're killed. I can't always pray over them. And I know that that is a big deal. That's why they have something called halal meats, is because it is prayed over, because you're still taking a life. But one of the things that I learned is just, I didn't learn it being applied to veganism, is that you should pray over your food. That is one of the things that you do to show respect and to mitigate. If you're not getting what is called, halal, meaning food that is prayed over, you buy it at the store or whatnot, pray over it. But just don't go crazy, because we living this Western lifestyle. Is a fast-paced lifestyle. So don't think that, oh my goodness, I'm just getting food from this restaurant or this store, and I'm not praying over it, blah blah blah, etc. But still, take the time out when you can, because let's just say life understands life. You don't have mean or bad intentions, and we live in an agnostic society. But just just to say it, don't get caught up in the, well, meat is bad, or animal sacrifice is bad. You know, uh, because you are killing an animal, when it's happening with trees as well. That's a life. And that life has to go through a similar process as when an animal dies. The thing is, we haven't even got to the part of explaining how soul transition, and your soul can transmigrate to trees. So there are people who have been trees in a past life, and there are people who will be trees in a future life. And those things, sometimes it plays a karmic or a dharmic role. There are trees that live for hundreds of years. The type of wisdom that you can develop living for hundreds of years, being steady and being still, but your soul can still travel and do things. And I know for sure, and I've seen it, soul transmigration through the animal kingdom. I remember years ago, this Santeria sister said to me that, when you have pets, it's very possible that, one of your pets can become, like your child or grandchild, or, great grandchild, like, it happens. But also when you read the Buddhist texts and stuff like that, it and the Hindu text as well, it gets into soul transmigration into the animal kingdom. You can become a lion in a future life, or was one in the past. People transmigrate, soul from life to life, sometimes into turtle, sometimes even into frogs, and sometimes it is for punishment, that you have to live as a certain type of animal, because you didn't show respect in certain ways when you were living as a human being.
Hmm. Yeah, when I read into that, I said, "Damn, that's deep." Like, and it's like how you say, like when people understand the imprisonment of the body, it's in the same type of sense. There's something that we're all supposed to have a clear understanding when it comes to our destiny. And then, yeah, that's a perfect example. Starting from the micro to the macro, understanding you had the plants all the way to animals. From that creation came, our beings in a sense. When our beings came here and all over the galaxy in a sense, there's a interwoven story that plays. And then depending on what you have done in your past, present, or future dictates a lot of the movements within your time cycle of the collective.
Yeah. So, this wealth of information and this diversity of information, this is what I use in providing my services to people, as a priest. There is the book, which is a wealth of information. Joy and I were discussing the fact that the book is available on Amazon.com. Those are
Yes.
all those are all bootleg
Let me,
copies.
if I may speak on that,
Yes,
gratitude, because the audience knows Karmic Dynasty is known as my sharer. Abiel Ben Leviel gifted me tribute the handle of busting up all lies. We bust them up around here. Now, I'm glad you brought up the book because I wanted to get back to that. And we're going to speak about how we can get the book from you, how much it costs. And definitely, the question has come up on the table. Y'all know I review, I study. I had to look at some things. And on Amazon, the books is like, they're, they are not, they are a lesser price. The books are a lesser price. On Amazon, those are bootleg copies. On Amazon, when you buy the bootleg copies, the author, R.A. Waldron, also known as Baba Nu here today on Karmic Dynasty, does not get any of the funds that the fiat you're putting in for the book. So you can purchase the book on Amazon. You purchase the book where you want to purchase the book. If you do not get it from R.A. Waldron himself, Baba Nu here on Karmic Dynasty today, he is not getting any parts of it. And I know the God Genes Decoded Volume 1 is like 474 pages.
yes,
And then there's two. That's a lot of work. And then listening to him speak about the science and chemistry that he studied to put into this first volume, and then you deal with publishers, publishing, illustrations, and all types of other stuff. It would be a disservice. And that's Joy Allen. That's Tisha Nicole speaking right now. Here go my contact information. If you have an issue with anything I'm about to say, you can contact me. Don't bother Baba Nu. All right. If you do, he heard me tell you don't go bother him. It would be a disservice to Baba Nu or A. Waldron to purchase the book anywhere other than via him. Now, of course, if you want to purchase it through me, and then me and Baba Nu already we working on, you can purchase the book through me. He knows y'all know me. That's okay. But I'm not selling y'all no Amazon price books because they bootleg. And y'all know I ain't rolling with that. Yes, uphold him up in dignity. Y'all know I don't play that around here. So let's talk about the price of the book, Sibyl Baba Nu, and let's talk about the hardcover versus the bootleg paperback you get in other places. And let's talk about this dignity and respect for the Siba and his work. And somebody done stole his work and they are profiting off of his work. So let's
yes.
speak directly. Y'all know I hate middlemen. Let's speak with the source right now. Baba Nu, tell us the price of the book, how we can get it from you, etc., etc., etc. Gratitude.
Yeah, the first thing that I want to say is that there's been a great injustice done in this movement because one of the primary bootleggers is African World Books, and a lot of people know it now. Maybe 7 years ago, a lot of people didn't know, but there has always been suspicion for over 15 years now. There's been great suspicion that African World Books bootlegs black authors' books, that they go and they make their own copies without you giving them rights, without you giving them the files, and not even using your files. The other thing is that Amazon.com has stopped me personally, from selling the book uh, on my seller account. This is the level of government interference and government sabotage that is being perpetrated against me. Um, the book was on Amazon selling for upwards of $1,500 a month. Amazon itself has stopped people from selling the book for that price. But they've also stopped me from selling the book for $250. The books that you're seeing online are all paperback. The books on Amazon.com are all paperback, and they didn't come from me. I started my own publishing company. I went to the book printers and I got my book printed from a book printer. And this is the same thing that major publishing houses would also do. Major publishing houses usually, if not exclusively, don't have their own printing machines and printing setup. They offshore that to book printers. And I've had the pleasure of, meeting some people that worked at printing companies that did the printing for major publishing houses. This is how the business works. So when I went to African World Books, I went to them as a sorry, I went to them as a publisher myself, right, with them for the distribution. And I was warned by M. Fundishi that Natty has his own machines and he duplicates your book. And I was new, I was young, I was like, what? So I didn't give him the file or anything, when I went to him. And I stupidly thought, and I'm going to say stupidly thought, that, Ifa and shrines would take care of it. So I'm being honest in how, I got screwed over. I was selling those books myself with, good enough sales, and everything tanked after I went to African World Book. So I have, as of about 3 or so years ago, I put them out in hardback. I was advised to do this by the deity Ptah, years ago, and I didn't listen. So I'm just being honest. I didn't follow counsel of a deity, and that made it worse for me. And then when I look back and see what the deity was saying, the the deity was saying that so that I can circumvent the unavoidable bootlegging that comes when you've written a great book. The deity said it because I wrote a great book, so I probably didn't have to go to anybody, and it would have been bootleg anywhere. I started out with great marketing. I got help with a talk show. This is like back in 2008, that, Blog Talk Radio was just going, and that show, be- just got started, and it became the third most popular show on Blog Talk. And it's because of the information that we were putting out, on African tradition, on spirituality, on occult, on the Kabbalah, and, those types of things. So, if you don't get the book from me and here now, Joy, which will be, meaning that she will be getting it from me, so that she can sell it to you guys. it's a bootleg copy. Every paperback is bootleg. I haven't printed paperback in years.
So how
Uh,
do they get the book from you directly? Even
uh,
though they know me, how they get it directly from you?
right. You can contact me. Um, my email address is egypvodoopriest My number, let me try to get it off my head without jumping out of this
I
chat
got
room.
it. I got it. I'll get it
Let
for you.
me
I'll
give it
put it
to
in
you.
the ticker for you in the banner.
Yeah. So you can contact me for direct sales,
And
and
Facebook Messenger chat, Facebook
pardon me?
Messenger on your Baba New Facebook account.
You can also contact me on my Babaну Facebook account. When Joy puts that number up, you can use that. If you heard me as a guest on the Joy Allen show, let me know, but I will ask you, you know, so that I can make sure that I track things with her and make sure that she is properly compensated, for me being a guest on her show. So you can contact me via email, and I always give my email because it's also good to use, email in terms of correspondence back and forth with uh, getting your information. So you can send me an email, and I will get a copy of the book out to you. The book is $250 for volume one. It is hardback. Volume two and three is also hardback. It is, and I like to be clear, it is full leather. It looks very, very nice. It's very, very strong covering. And then there's a lot of amazing material in the book. I've gotten so much feedback from the quality of material in the book, from the insight that I place in the book, from the correlations that I make, and from the way that I explain information. So I know that there was an upgrade, in the movement itself. The book inspired an upgrade in the movement, and the book also inspired an upgrade in scientific literature, even on an academic level. I've been blessed to be able to see what is going on and the results, and it's been very, very controversial for me being a black man without a college degree, with that level of information that also not just challenged what Egyptologists were saying about Egypt, but also started to challenge scientific information. When you get to volume three in the beginning, it goes over some, scientific information. It shows how, some of that information is confusing and incorrect. And, you know, I don't know if some of that information was purposefully incorrect that science was putting out, or if some scientists just didn't know. And I think it's a bit of both. You know, in volume one, I had stated that the interstellar medium, what they're calling dark matter, what people calling dark matter, has already been proven by a scientist to be hydrogen. This was 17 years before volume one was published. In 2008, dark matter was known as hydrogen. So for years, you had people constantly talking about dark matter this and dark matter that. And even recently, I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's supposed to be some leading scientist, talking about dark matter, and it's all garbage. It's all garbage. The interstellar medium is dark because the light hasn't penetrated there. There's no sun close by. And what is now the matter in between the suns and stars and moons is almost only I'm just trying to be careful. It's almost only hydrogen that's coming off of the suns, blasting through the universe. That's what, meaning dark matter is hydrogen. And I'm just saying, where it came from. This particular scientist used a very, very powerful um, telescope. It's not like a telescope that you can go buy from a store. Like they have major, massive telescopes built. They also have like the Hubble telescope, which is far up in the air. It doesn't have to be in outer space. It just has to be in the upper atmosphere. It just has to be close to the ozone layer to look into outer space. And now you can look at, something, you don't have to be looking at, 1,000 miles away to see this hydrogen, this so-called uh, what they're calling dark matter. And the scientist was explaining what he was able to do process-wise with the technology that he was using to see that it's hydrogen, and that what all these people are calling dark matter is just hydrogen. So I know that got feathers ruffled. And then when you uh have a history of junk science, not only in science but in spirituality and occult circles, but mainly like spirituality. There's all this, dark matter this, dark matter that, and just hydrogen. you know um so there was some other information that I did put in there where I am using recent research, recent explanations. Like when I wrote the book uh, back in 2000, and I wrote the book in 2007. I finished in the same year, but I published it under my own publishing company in the beginning of 2008. I didn't go to African World Books for about 2 or so years, and I was making sales and stuff like that. But when I wrote the book, molecular cell biology was something that was still relatively new. It wasn't something that was like 15 years down the road. Molecular cell biology had been introduced. It was still a new area of science where they were bridging the gap between chemistry, biology, and physics. And that's why I was able to, really to get a lot of integrated information, why I was able to, you know, mainly use that book, because that book, it got into hydrogen and other atoms, but then it also got into DNA, you know but it's breaking down the DNA strand to its chemical, you know compounds of the different molecules that bind the DNA strand together. Now is also showing you those molecules, what they are. And then we're also seeing, hydrogen being involved in there. So then it's now getting into the DNA strand and what the DNA codes produce in the body. So now it's getting into biology. And I saw this in the ancient Egyptian cosmological doctrines. I saw, they didn't say the DNA strand, but I saw them, I saw text, mentioning, binding together the ladder of a tomb, and it spoke of the primordial deities, and it gave their names of what binds together the ladder of a tomb. And it's obvious that the ladder of a tomb is a DNA strand. It's obvious. Something had, clicked in me with the caduceus staff, which is two serpents, and that being DNA. So then seeing the ladder of a tomb, which is a serpent, I'm like, they're talking about DNA. So I'm reading a book on DNA and the different, molecules and atoms that binds it together. And then I'm reading Kamut text about the primordial deities binding, the ladder of a tomb. And then I'm also getting into Tehuti and the Caduceus staff and seeing that that looks like a DNA strand. So, you know, when you do your prayers, because this is what I did. I did a prayer to get knowledge. I got down on my knees. I was like, I'm really, really stupid. Please help me. And ancestors and deities, you know, got involved and they helped me to write the book. And I do give them credit for that. And I listed in the first book I did, a bibliography, and I included that science book so that people can see where I'm drawing the scientific information from. But if you get that book, you will see how much that also integrates. It's not talking anything about Kemet. That book is not talking anything about deities. I just started to look at, enough Khmu text and started to look at words that Egyptologists were using, but not necessarily talking about. If you're saying that this is a book of evolution, then what is evolution? And we are seeing that evolution, on a biological level, you know, the role that DNA plays in that. So, that's one of the reasons why, at a very early stage, the deity Patel told me that the book has to be $250, and he told me how it had to look. And I did not take it seriously. And I look back, years afterwards, and I realized if I had done that, that would have exposed the bootlegging very, very early on. And, people would have been able to see that, hey, you have all these paperback copies. This is from like back in 2011. Because prior to that, I was making a lot of sales in the Carolinas. A large percentage of my sales were in the Carolinas. But now if those sales had me switched to, hardbacks, then that person would not have had a choice. And they didn't have the machinery, which is another reason why I was told to switch to those hardbacks and those nice looking hardback is because getting the machines to print books like that costs you so much money. You have to make a major investment. And if the vast majority, I mean, African World Books, I've seen Natty selling. I didn't see one hardback. Everything was soft cover. And I'm not the only person that he bootlegged. He bootlegged a Yoruba Babalawo named Ayo Salami. I was initiated as a Babalawo, and it must have been the year maybe 2014 or 2015. The year 2015, I went to see my Oluwo, sorry, and he said to me, Ayo Salami is dead. And, he said it to me like if I'm supposed to know him. But yes, because those were the books that he recommended me to buy to really learn Ifa. If you didn't grow up in Nigeria and gone through what they go through from childhood with Ifa, knowing that you're trying to, practice Ifa and do Ifa readings. He said, get these two books. He gave me the author. Like one of them was Ayo Salami. And I remember buying the book from Nati. And, this is my heartfelt, not ashamed to say it, stupidity. I saw that the book cover wasn't properly printed. I saw that the text was a bit smudged, and I said, this is the quality that's coming from Africa. This is what I said. Not in 2015. I had bought that book in 2010. I had bought that book in 2010. So in 2010, like late 30s, age 38, and I still had that perception. You know, uh, forgive me. I'm sorry for having that perception because that perception is wrong, not just for Africa, but even countries like Barbados that people think is third world. I had a person tell me that, Barbados is third world, but it's all those things in my mind, looking at the book and thinking that the quality wasn't up to par with the printing, because of that reason. But the quality wasn't up to par because there was a relatively sloppy job done in African world books, taking the book apart, scanning it on the scanner, and not using the right resolution. Is quite a job to really really scan and get something looking good. You get a huge file now if it's picture artwork color that you have to have on your computer. So I also saw that the text in on the book, it was slightly, it wasn't 100% parallel to the page. So I saw that the text wasn't 100% parallel to the page. The text was slightly smudged, and the color of the cover wasn't crisp. That's because African World Books and its owner Natty is bootlegging books. And it's bootlegging books by scanning the books, not even by getting the files of the owner. And it's gone around for years, doing this with the understanding, especially before social media. I should have done more to talk about this on social media that, a lot of people just don't realize. A lot of people just don't realize, and the leadership isn't talking about it. Meaning, meaning Senator Samaj isn't talking about it, and Fundishi mentioned it. Dr. Jeffries isn't talking about it. Professor Smalls isn't talking about it. Phil Valentine isn't talking about it. You know, Bobby Hammond has passed away, but he wasn't talking about it. If the leaders with the popularity and the power, because they have that power, I came up in this movement since 1993, and they have that power to impress upon people and to stand on say certain things. If they're not talking about it, it's not real. It's just a rumor, and I saw the frustration with M. Fundishi because he explained to me, he was like, this guy has a machine. He has to, he is printing my book. People are telling me that they're seeing my book, in this particular area. And, he said, I'm not selling. He said, I haven't sold the book down there in 2 or 3 years, but, so much people are saying that they have the book. So he let me know, and then ancestors let me know. And I was like, why did you let it happen to me? I'm seriously, I was asking the deities and the ancestors, why did you let it happen to me? I asked Ogun, why did you let this happen to me? You know? Um, but seeing how the system and how the movement has degraded over time, and then seeing how people came in that were way less professional and way less academic, and were able to amass big followings, and take a lot of people's monies. It's because the authors and the professionals, they were sabotaged. They couldn't make money in the ways that they used to really help them to be able to really stay active and keep the word up. And social media was just budding around 2007. 2006, 2005, it was mainly like online groups. MySpace came on board, probably in a good way in 2005. Facebook hadn't yet let non college students onto Facebook in 2005 or 2006. I think it wasn't really till late 2007 or late
Yeah, it was like seven,
2008.
eight. It was about 7, 8. Yeah.
Yeah, that Facebook opened its doors to the public, and Facebook did that because MySpace was really really doing it. People, two people contacted me on MySpace. When I got on MySpace, I hadn't even written a book yet. I didn't even have a book out yet, and they contacted me, wanting to work with me. One was because I just said I was getting initiated into voodoo, and that I hadn't even written a book, and that person ended up getting my picture in a magazine that was distributed in foreign countries, on newsstands, in America. And that person that found me on I'm sorry, had found me on MySpace. The brother that had me on his talk show, um what's his name? Something one, Illuminated One, Curtis Davis. He had contacted me on MySpace, and he said, because I had said that I was going to write a book, and once the book came out, I got him a copy, and he started a blog talk radio show for maybe a few weeks after my book came out, or maybe a few months. He started up his blog talk radio show, because I remember where it was when I got the copies, and he didn't have the talk show yet. He was like, I'm about to do it. So you know the book also came out at a time when social media landscape was changing. Back then, like what we are doing now, video shows, it wasn't happening back then. It was radio, and you just heard the person, and you were still able to make a big impact. You can probably still make a big impact these days, but now a lot of people are moving on to having their shows live, but on video. So um there was a lot of marketing potential, but then Nachi specifically, you know uh he was bootlegging. He came in and bootleg, and that really really killed it for me. That really really killed it for me economically, because I didn't want to work as a priest. And it's not because I could not work as a priest. You know, my ancestors had spoken to me about it, and I was still, um, I know that it was, dietary, and I was still very, very relaxed and not wanting to deal with, people's issues. you know um you have to deal with people's issues. You still have to have a thick skin. And but I was also bringing people in for initiations and stuff like that. But now it's a different ball game. um Not just selling books, offering my services uh in a very, very innovative way, or offering my products, to help with various things. And still, just letting people know that there there is a difference when priests like myself uh have products, shrines, and amulets, because the deity get involved. you know um I was showing a lot of information on shamanism around the world years ago, and there was one perfect example of a Buddhist, which this was important to me because I count myself as a Buddhist. He had 10 different goddesses working with him, and his formula for, healing. And, he was showing how, you know, they would help to transform it, not actually showing them physically, not that, but how that formula transforms. And that is in the way that I am, working with the deity and my products, and why people get phenomenal results. The fact that I maintain uh my orphans, so I maintain the spirit, the ka of the deities, just like when you have a shrine, and you have to put your products there and let them bless the products, let them activate the products. And then when you have amulets, um the best amulets will always be the amulets that have the ka of the deity in the amulet. And there are different deities that do different things. So it's good to have, let's call it, an arsenal of deities. So, I work with 72 different angels. I have them all consecrated, and I do my offerings to them. Um, that is of what's called the Shem Hamperash. But I also work with the 72 Eshu's, and I'm able to do that because I have a very good relationship with the deity Ptah. And the 72 Eshu's are the 72 sons of Ptah. That's who the 72 Eshu's are. And it's critical that people understand that. Years ago, on the internet, somehow, man, I wish I could find this. A Palera put out 38 of their names because they worked with them in the Congo. 38 of their names. And I was reading over some of the names, and that same night, several of them came to me. And then I was at a voodoo ceremony, and after the ceremony, several of them came to me again. So, I and back then I had learned that when a deity comes to you, the best way to work with the deity is to consecrate it. So even though you might not be a priest, even though you might not be a priest who can consecrate, when a deity comes to you, you can consecrate that one. That deity is coming to you to help you out. It's not going to hang around. It doesn't have time to be around you all the time, to be at your house all the time. It doesn't. So I've ran into people who were priests who were just spiritual. They had active shrines because the deity came to them. And then they bought the statue. And then they put some fruits and foods there. So, it might not be as active as one that was done sacrifices for, but it is still active. It's still consecrated. The goddess Kali consecrated my Ptah shrine for me because at that time I was just beginning. I had consecrated Yemaya, I had consecrated Ogun, and I had consecrated Shango. Went and bought the statue. But I was still just in the beginning. But because I was so close to Kali, I did a lot of meditations with her. She has spoken to me. When I bought the statue before I could do the consecration, she came and did it. Like I saw her come and actually did it. And I had to also realize that it's also because she has a special relationship with the deity Ptah, you know? So, you know, I'm at the point where I'm realizing that for our lifestyle, amulets is a place that we have to go because you can have one amulet that has 50 different deities in it, whereby you're not going to have 50 shrines in your house. We don't have the big houses, and if you get a nice size space that you can put a 50 shrines, it's still going to take up a lot of space. It's still going to be um a lot to contend with and deal with. And I'm not saying don't do it because I have done it and have every single intention of doing it again. But it's not feasible for the average person. And this is why amulets became and are a critical part of the culture that needs to be brought back. When we look at the way that Westerners wear jewelry, I want to let people know that that goes back to all the way in Atlantis when we wore amulets like jewelry. We had gold rings and copper rings, and brass, because gold and copper is not just silver. Yes, we had silver rings, and it's not just gold. We also had copper. Copper. It could be bracelet or whatnot, but the ones that were embedded and encrusted with different stones. When we had those things, it was because people were multiplying the amount of deities they worked within one amulet. It could get down to just a chain that just have different links, meaning you don't necessarily have to have the stone. You know, each individual link can be a different deity consecrated in it. So I was putting out a lot of information on this, and yes, it really shook things up, like shook people up. You could have a deity consecrated into a piece of paper, no lie, but of course it's not going to last. You can have a deity consecrated into a stone that you just keep in your pocket. You just have your lucky stone. Um, you can even have you can even have your keys consecrated to certain deities, things that you keep on your keychain, you know. But it is better if you have like a bracelet, a chain, a ring, an anklet, um, These are things that we as a people use from antiquity. You know, the Capra bracelet that I wore, I found out that the person that first sculpted it saw a picture or a drawing of it that was uncovered in ancient Egypt. So they had these bracelets back in ancient Egypt, and this one has two stones in it. So you can have three different deities in it. Yeah, it's a Kepler bracelet, so you could have Kepler, and then in each stone you can have uh, a different deity. And
Hmm.
yeah, I got this Kepler bracelet from the Shrine of Ptah. I think that Smitawi. It has a globe in its claws, and I saw, I think South America is drawn on there. And the year that I got it, the deities were introducing me to teleportation. So I have a teleportation bracelet. Teleportation is real. Um, you know, I do.
That invisibility, all kinds of stuff. Keep going.
Yeah, it is real. So, you know, I can activate it. So if you want to get a Kepler teleportation bracelet, you can get it from me. Of course, because it does teleportation, and it will be silver. It's not going to be cheap, but you will see and feel when you teleport. It might take about 3 or 4 weeks. It might take about 5 or 6 weeks, but then you're gonna have obvious teleportation um, experiences whereby you were walking and you missed the place, but the only way you could have missed it is if you were traveling like the speed of light. You're gonna get to places much, much faster. I can recall walking in front of buses and just thinking, oh, these buses are slow. I'm just a strong person. And I'm walking maybe about 5 miles, just constantly telling myself, oh, I can pass these buses. These buses will never catch up to me. I'm walking like 5 miles and I'm doing this distance in like less than 30 minutes. And I'm like, I'm just healthy. You know, I'm constantly blaming it on my health. And then one day it was late at night. I was going down the same stretch, and my necklace, not the teleportation bracelet, it 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 popped, and I stopped, and I looked back, and I said, "Okay, I'm not just walking." I knew that something major was happening, and I just became more conscious of it, and I just watched myself more carefully. Then I was like, okay, you know, um, there were my ancestors that come to me and spoke to me about Arcturians, and they were trying to tell me a lot about Arcturians, and they were letting me know that they have given me the ability to make the teleportation bracelet a teleportation bracelet, meaning that's what it's supposed to be. What Senor Samaj Baba Heru made, what he found, what he saw, and what he draw and sculpted is for teleportation. He didn't know that. I know that he didn't know that. I know that he didn't know that. I believe that he does now. But you know, a lot of things that our ancestors had over there in Africa, it, we have it too. We have the ability, and I know that it was just put in this form because it's just better. Uh, Teleportation bracelets in Africa don't look like this. He spoke to an African person. He spoke about teleportation and the bracelet that they wear, and it doesn't look like this. It's a bracelet, and this is what I am keeping for my teleportation bracelets. It has a globe in its claws because it makes navigation easier. That is important. It makes navigation easier. And I mean, I don't get lost, and but sometimes I end up maybe 4 or 5 blocks where I shouldn't be. It's only happened about 3 times, and but I know why it happened. It also happens with me going down straight streets that I actually teleport, and it's obvious and it's clear, and I'm not mistaken, or I'm not like, oh my God, I just missed this place that I was going to, where I can see. um it happens when you move. That's why I say, it's good if you walk. I don't know if it's going to work when you are driving. I don't know, because you know I don't drive much. It's only trains that I use. I know that you should squeeze it on and let it give you a little bit of pain. You know, I know that because your energy gets integrated with it better. So that's one of the things that you should do with it. It's not that it has to hurt or really be uncomfortable, or anything like that, but it's designed to kind of press into your hand. So once it's pressed into your hand, it'll work.
Gratitude. It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And when we introducing somebody, you never know what you're gonna get, huh? And I know with you, there's much, much more, because there's so much that I know that I've not even heard you speak on today. Um, Ramutef, you have some feedback for us because you've been on hyper interactive over there.
It's just when you hear when you hear um when you hear our people speak on a lot of the truths that's been hidden, especially when it comes to like when I was just showing in the Goetia. A lot of people don't understand, like, you don't have to really worry about that. I mean, you can deal with them if you want to, but when you figure out who they really are and where their placement is at, I should say. And then my introduction to that was when I started with the first 36, and I was dealing with the uh the zodiac addenda, right? They're all right there in the outer ring. Didn't know that as much as we trained, in a sense, knowing that keywords of as above, so below, I didn't think about that as well. I didn't actually think, oh, there's 36 below and there's 36 above. I did not know that. And then I started doing the research and a little bit, and then you find out his two wives, in a sense. His two wives are considered Baas and Sekhmet, right? 36 kids born from Sekhmet, 36 kids born from Baas. From there, as you keep going in and going in and going in, then you start to see the angels, and you start throwing in those seals. And once you understand what those seals are and how they not going too deep into it, but how they use them, in a sense, that's something that is what's called a passed down lineage. And the way that I was thinking about it personally is like dealing with the old dudes, in a sense. And when we start talking about DNA, that's how I see those old dudes, those 16 old dudes, or the was it 254 combinations? I can't remember off the top of my head, but those 16 majors, to me myself, it's like I see them as those DNA strands. And as we keep going and going and going and going and going, I started practicing and seeing certain things in your fingers. Hold on, I don't know if you can see them. Like right here, this is that bottom part of your knuckle. As you start to learn these different divination practices, you start to see how everything's interconnected, everything's woven, but at the same time, it's the same energy process. It's just under a different name or under a different deity, because a lot of the deities, in a sense, are the ancestors. Become that source of power, and understanding the difference between, like I tell people straight up, you got to know the difference between um I'm gonna deal with Ifa and the Kemetic deities. You got to understand who the Netaru are and who are the Ta Netaru. Just like when you're dealing with the Orishas, you got to understand who the Orumales are and who the Orishas are. Once you understand that concept, because it's always in twos, it's always in a pair of twos, you start to understand who are the actual cosmic beings or that cosmic influential energy, and those who are literally right here on Earth with us. We may not see them. Some of us can, some of us can't. Some of us can hear them, some of us can feel them. Like myself, I'm only a person that can feel. I can't see or hear, but I can feel it. Or most people can see, but they can't feel or hear. And then most people can hear, and so on and so forth. But it's understanding how to awaken those senses within the body, and then just going back into the dark matter part. A lot of people get that confused with the reason why scientists and things of that nature people get so confused is because they're giving the name of dark energy to dark matter, if that makes sense. They just get that stuff, and that's how they confuse everyone. Um, Understanding that, yeah, when you start dealing with dark matter and going into that realm and understanding the different parts of the hydrogen, and then learning how to break it down each and every one. So like the method that I learned from we got an introduction to it was through Dr. Gabriel Oribo, and from his Gaga, in a sense, how it took me to a zone when I was looking at, all right, if I was to make something out of nothing, and understanding that my source is hydrogen, how do I create as the separation, things of that nature, and multiply? So you go to the periodic table, they have it all there. Let's start from what's that place called? Let's start with oxygen for example, right? It's 8 hydrogen units, in a sense, as they will put it. But at the same time, if you want to break it down even further, what are the electron count? Because they tell you each electron count on each one, and then you're going to find out that um, each count is that element, in a sense. So say for instance it was like 2 2 2 2 2, so that's helium basically 4 times, in a sense, right? And things of that nature. And as you start to keep going and going and going and going, and then you just multiply, not even multiply, but you add those numbers together. Like each hydrogen unit is 1.8, rounded off. They have other, different numbers for it, but rounded off is 1.008. Each one of those, if you start counting it, that's how you start to make things. When you find out what is this hydrogen density number or whatever you want to call it, you can start breaking down each and every element to its proper source or a combination that creates it. Like let's say, for instance, gold. They always tell you to with gold, it's the best combination for gold or creating gold would be using what is it 70. I said my notes. I'm not going to tell my secrets, but there's a message that comes with that, and understanding what each one of those electrons, in a sense, or those hydrogen units, on what they're telling, because each one is telling a story from what I'm looking at as I was doing like my own personal research on that part. But yeah. So my question is, um, let's get into the book. Let's get into the book. So from earlier, you were describing or were you describing all three books, or were you describing just the first book?
I was describing the first book.
Mm-hmm.
I just briefly spoke on the beginning of the third book and how it clarifies the nomenclature used for different elements. It could be like isotopes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, volume one, um, one of the major parts of volume one is the cosmology at Anu, and then it breaks down the correspondences of the eight Netaru to different uh, elements on the periodic table. So,
Mm-hmm.
I had shown, why Kerr and correct are carbon,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what carbon represents. So, in terms of what each of those material correlate to, I showed what wisdom, you know, they were bringing. So, there is a um, there's a gradual evolution of life of the Neteru as they, became different elements in their journey into becoming uh, advanced biological beings. So,
Mm-hmm.
from hydrogen to oxygen to water, and then to carbon, and what each of those elements represent, like how water function, how carbon is able to bond with itself in so many different combinations because of the valence shell, that it can create some of the most beautiful structures with carbon. And that being the last one, it was like, well, that's the last stage. And when you're going to have a big advanced universe, how you going to have beauty in creation of structures, how you're going to have diversity in creation of structures. And then, you know, I might not have even put this in the book, but the combination at that level also gives different colors, as the color relates to texture of those molecules. So, what the ancient Egyptians were, showing in the primordial Neteru, and what they relate to, because they do compare them to fire, earth, air, and water. Amun was compared to fire. You
Mm-hmm.
know, of course, Noon is compared to water, and then Kerr is compared to earth. But you see how much of an earth element is carbon. Water is obvious. We had to go to science to see how much of a fire element is hydrogen in terms of the hydrogen bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that a photon that's coming off of the sun, that is a hydrogen atom. you
Mm-hmm.
know, and what makes it so hot and bright is how fast it is oscillating, on its axis. That's what causes it to, glow. So we have light because of the way that particular hydrogen atom is made to function.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then what its counterpart, the radiation, is mirrored. Well, it's a mirror image for every photon that we're hitting. Each one is emitting we call it like basically dark body radiation in a sense, which is basically like the galaxy in a sense.
yeah, so moving on to the DNA, corresponding that with 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 the I Ching, and getting into the I Ching, uh, with specifically comparing and showing how the qualities of those eight Neteru, even though they're made to make up the DNA molecule, how those correspond now, with the eight Gua of the I Ching, and how that relates to the deity Tehuti, in terms of uh, that's an oracle system that was developed by the Neter Tehuti, but also that, with the Caduceus staff looking like DNA, that's the relationship that we have there. Um, you know, right, and then big time on, some of the functions of the human body and how that relates to different deities on a macrocosmic level. Like our self defense and our defense against um, viruses and bacteria. How like we are at war with Mother Nature. So being able to correlate that with a war with love and peace, how protecting the human body now, how it happens still is still a physical thing, it's still a biological thing, but there is transformation going on there. And then comparing text uh for for Kepler, Herakuti, and Osiris having the same prayers, and Osiris, his name is the name of Ra. So how those three deities have the same exact hymnal, but one is a war deity and it deals with protection, and the other one, um, uh, Osiris, now deals with creation, but they have the same prayers because there's an interrelation. Did I lose someone?
No, we're still here.
Okay. My battery is down to 15% now. So I think it's a good time that we can bring the show to an end. I've
Okay.
never done a show this long.
Wow, I'm surprised. I'm
Yeah, I've never
surprised.
done a show for over 2 hours.
Okay, well, yeah, we're in two and a half, a little over that. So we are
Hmm.
going to be back one day soon. Excuse me, Romuto. We're going to be here again one day soon. And when we come again, Siba Kepra Pata just may be with us. Now, again, if you didn't hear the beginning, you can rewind and get it back. Siba Kepra Pata referred Siba Baba Nu to Karmic Dynasty, and I am grateful, grateful. This is an honor to have you here on Karmic Dynasty. And Kepra spoke highly of the book that you have, The God Genes Decoded. And I am going to get my copy. And just from what he told me, because we'll be here again and we will discuss this book some more, along with some other things. And it has been put, your book has been put on my radar to use in homeschooling. I think this book, I know this book already is a foundation for homeschooling. So I will continue my efforts and I will have you here again on Karmic Dynasty. And Siba Baba Nu, if you would close out the broadcast for us, share with everyone again how we can contact you to get a copy of our book, a, our copy of your book, The God Genes Decoded. And I'm diddling and piggybacking and validating and thumbs upping all he says right now. Peace to all of you. We'll see you next time. Siba Baba Nu, if you would.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the show, and I'm also thankful for the host for bringing me on the show. My name is Baba Nu Hiri Mensa Ogun. I'm the author of the God Genes Decoded series of books, and I am imploring people to, only buy them through me, or where I publicly state you can get them through the um, course, I've only done that for two people now. And Joy is the second. If you contact her to get the book, you will be getting a copy where I will be making profits from, whereby I wouldn't be getting robbed, and it would be the hardback copy. So now you are getting a copy that can last a lifetime. That can be an heirloom and passed down. Yeah, it's a much better quality book. Um, you can contact me via email. My email address is egyptodoopriest You can contact me via my phone number, which is 347-274-9647. 347-274-9647. I do spiritual readings. I help people with healing. I do spiritual work for people, whether you need help finding a job, you need help finding a mate, whether you need help improving your financial situation, help trying to find a job and stuff like that. I do that type of spiritual work. If you need spiritual bath cleanses, and to remove negativity. If somebody puts some witchcraft on you, trust me, I can definitely get it off, and you feel when it comes off. I've done that for people before. There were people that sought me out because their mate had a terrible spell on them, and I gave them my soul. But I remember the goddess Sekhmet saying, "No, you have to tell them the price first, because that's a big deal." And so I can do those things as well. Peace, love, and blessings.